Yo. Okay, I'm folding laundry, so I'm going to do this. Hopefully this isn't too bad. That's good. Okay, so this is great. Here, I'll do it like this. Yeah, that's better. Okay. I hope you like this view. So, just been this weekend was hectic internally, and I wanted to just document a few things that I realized, especially now that I'm not in it anymore, so I can have a little bit of perspective on it. It's a good thing we had a 4-day weekend. Hold on, I'm just gonna get some water. Alright. Chelsea's pillow comes in handy. So, basically, one sec. Alright. So this weekend was Easter weekend. Good Friday, all that stuff, right? And yeah, so some of you may be familiar with my story, some of you may not be. Now, I don't think my story really matters here, except to just say that basically every holiday, something comes up internally, emotionally, that I have to deal with. And I don't know about you, but I'm not very good at dealing with my emotions. I spent most of my life kind of ignoring them and pushing them to the side. Basically saying that they don't matter because I didn't want to address them. I didn't like how they made me feel, right? I didn't like what they were trying to show me. I would rather just ignore it and hope it goes away. And if you spend any amount of time in this life, you probably realize that that's a terrible strategy. Whatever you ignore doesn't go away, it just amplifies. And so, basically, I spent my whole life pushing my feelings away and thinking that that was how I was supposed to handle them, because I was taught to disregard how I'm feeling, because there's a bunch of reasons. One, somebody was actively helping me feel that way, and two, they didn't want to face themselves, so they would take the sovereignty out of my own feelings and emotions, and basically help you to understand that you're making it up, and that you have no logical reason to be crying or anything like that. And so, for me, what I realized is, this is the thing they say about, basically about training people, or what they say. There's another word for domesticating them. At some point, you don't have to, if you're domesticating somebody or something, eventually you don't have to do much work anymore, because, especially if you get them young enough, because that someone will have been trained to domesticate itself, basically. And, they talk, I'm sure you've heard the story about the elephant that gets tied to a stick as a baby, or a pony, or whatever they're called. He can't pull the stick out of the ground, and so eventually it grows up and it's still tied to a stick of the same size, and it doesn't try to pull out of the ground because it knows, or at least it thinks it knows, that it's not going to work because it's tried it before in the past. And so the elephant doesn't understand how big and strong it is. And there's a strong corollary between that and what I've been going through basically all my life. And the issue is most of us don't realize it, so we're not conscious of it. And so we may think we have things taken care of, but eventually what's pushed down into the subconscious, outside of the realm of the conscious mind, eventually that stuff bubbles up. I heard somebody the other day on a podcast basically say it's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. The shit's gonna pop up, And the thing is you don't necessarily know when or where it's going to pop up. And so for me, I can guarantee that if it's a holiday, I'm probably not going to be in the best mood. Not even because it's a choice, but just because there's so much energy that's being distributed, being released, being passed through, and so much stuff that I'm still connected to, that around those times, I'm not myself. I basically revert back to my old self, and my old self has a certain way of handling things. And it's not necessarily good or bad, but it doesn't really serve me for how I am now. And basically, what I've started to understand is, one, it's okay, and two, it really has nothing to do with me personally. And so I remember I was telling somebody that they're too self-interested, they're too selfish basically, they're too interested in their experience. And I think this is a very similar answer or solution. It's like, understand, okay, if it's raining, do you get upset that it's raining out? Do you try and control the rain? And for people like me, I'm sure you're like this way too, you've learned that there are certain things that you can manipulate in the world or in yourself to get a certain state of being that you would rather stay in, or a certain state of mind. And so if you're angry or if you're sad or whatever, then you'll go and do something to make you happy. But the thing is if you do that for 20 years or 100 years or 50 years or whatever, you would never have actually taken the time to figure out what made you angry. Because you would have been distracting yourself every time you felt an emotion you didn't like. And for all of us, this is very difficult, because it means that the stuff that we tried to push away, the stuff we tried to not look at, the stuff we tried to basically hide about ourselves, we have to address. And we have to address it so fully that it can't come up anymore. It has to basically be eliminated, or as Master Poe would say, it has to be disintegrated. You have to actually take it out. The energy has to be removed. And you have to understand that it's not you. It's just some energy that's been stuck inside of you. I believe in India they call these samskaras. It's just something that's been stuck. It's trying to come out. And instead of letting it come out and understanding that we're human and we all go through these things, we'll put on some makeup, we'll put on something nice, we'll go out, we'll drink some booze, we'll have a good time, we'll smoke some weed, hang out with our friends, eat some food, watch a movie, distract ourselves from inquiring where these emotions are coming from and how we can resolve it. Now, I thought that therapy was the thing that fixed this. But what I'm realizing is there is no solution to this. There is no I'm done. There isn't a graduation phase.
And if there is, the only phase there is the phase where you begin to understand that this has nothing to do with you. And the way that you can guarantee this has nothing to do with you is because you didn't have anything to do with the energy that put this thing there. Now, you could say, well, I felt it, I didn't want to feel it, so I shoved it down so it got stuck. Okay, it's possible. But what if you felt it and something inside of you knew that at that moment that you felt it, you were not ready to take care of it. So that thing inside of you stored it until you were ready to take care of it. And now you're a little bit older, a little bit wiser, probably have a little bit less things that are attacking you or combating you on a daily basis. And so there's a part of you, an inner being, that will decide it's time. It's time for this thing to be released. It's time for this thing to be addressed. It's time for this thing to be healed. Now, we think that we're in charge of our own healing. And on a certain level, we are. But the thing that created the issue is not the same thing that can heal the issue. And what that means is if we think we created the issue, that means we're not going to be able to heal the issue. So Michael Singer talks about surrender. And I wrote a blog post on why giving up is the ultimate form of surrender. And the reason we talk about surrender is because there's nothing else that you can do. Everything else, if you look at it from an energetic point of view, is antagonistic. It pushes against. Even if you're trying to discern or look at something clearly, you still need to push against that thing in order to see it. You need to create space in order to see it. You need to push that thing away, or you need to push that thing and it stays still and you move away. And both of those, energetically, is looking at that thing, as an other. And there is, I'm going to start tying a couple things together. There is a man who, Ken Wilber, who basically wrote a book called The Theory of Everything. He has a couple different books. He talks about this as shadow work. Now, these things that we try to create distance between and identify, they're not others. And they have an actual consciousness. And so basically what these are, they're called Holons, Holons. And a Holon has and represents all of the whole basically in and of itself. And so a Holon has its own reality, has its own identity, has its own existence. And that Holon you could think of as the samskara. There isn't much of a difference. It's just the language and the terminology. But what they don't tell you in the samskara is that Holon is an entity. It's a thing. It's a fragment of your personality, basically. An aspect of it that wasn't properly integrated at whatever stage of psycho-physical, social development we're at. So for me, some of my Holons have to do with social relationships, right? And so I will have sub-personalities that will engage with quote-unquote others at the relationship level. And the true me will not really speak. And it will be this thing that is basically channeling the true me through this non-integrated sub-personality. And so
you can probably see where the energetic distortions will begin to appear, right? And basically, the whole thing that we need to do, that we need to practice, is become aware of this and not push against it, not resist it. Now, at some point in our lives, we created this thing, this subpersonality, this Holon, to protect ourselves. Because our inner being didn't think that it was the time for us to deal with that energy at the time. They didn't think we were ready. It could have killed us, basically. And for me, I know this is true because this energy that I was dealing with over the weekend is the same energy that I've felt before when I've had a knife to my wrist and I've been trying to kill myself. And so I know it's real because I felt it before. But I know that it's not bigger than me because I'm still alive. And that's basically all the confidence that I need to deal with the energy. To understand that, one, this energy is a part of me. So there is a part of me that does truly feel this way. And two, that I created this at a certain time and space to deal with how I was feeling at the time. And I know for a fact that I never neutralized it because I had no idea at the time what that even meant, right? And so the way this manifests for a lot of us is because we're not always aware that we're creating sub-personalities. The way this manifests for a lot of us is we just start to have negative thoughts and negative feelings, and we don't feel like ourselves. And so, because most of us don't like to look at our own shadow, we'll just chalk it up to, we're having a bad day, blah, blah, blah. I'm not usually like this. But Robert Greene says, in the laws of human nature, that actually, if you don't do the work to address this stuff, this is who you are. And when you say, oh, I don't know what came over me, you're lying, and you'll do it again. Because you're not identifying with it, you're not accepting responsibility, and you're basically blaming it on somebody. And as long as you continue to do that, you're not going to grow. So if you can't grow, then you're going to be stuck, and you're going to be dealing with this. And this is how, what's his name? The guy who wrote Becoming Joe Dispenza, Becoming Supernatural, says this is how moods become personalities. This is how they become character. This is how people change over time from that loving kid to that irritable adult, because they don't want to look at these things that they are creating, that I am creating, right? I don't want to feel like I want to inflict pain on somebody. I don't want to feel like I want to get back at somebody. But I can't deny that there's a part of me that wants to. Because as long as I do deny that, that part of me will actually have a reality. Because what you deny, you give existence to. What you focus on expands. You give energy to it. The more you deny it, the more energy it has. And the more you say it's not me, the more you give this thing a state of being, or the more you make this thing an entity. So what once was just an energy that was passing through you now has a consciousness, because the consciousness that that you were supposed to do, the area of your consciousness that was supposed to address this energy decided to disassociate from it. And so, because of that, it created a being in that same spot. And so, where you would previously have control, awareness, understanding, you now have darkness. And we will say, oh, I didn't create this darkness, I didn't make this darkness, I just can't see it. And it's just not true. It's not true. So that's the hardest part of all this, is understanding that no matter what we're feeling, no matter what we're thinking, no matter what we've been through, unless we're currently experiencing the actual negative experience in 3D, we have a responsibility for addressing it ourselves. And that's it. It really doesn't matter. At a certain level, nobody cares. Nobody can do the work for you. And nobody can see this part of it, except for you. People will see it manifest, but they don't know why it's there. They don't know what it is. They just think it's how you are. So if you want to change how people perceive you, if you want to walk around with a new way of being, then you need to understand that these perceptions that you hold aren't just perceptions. And they're not just emotions, and they're not just memories. They are sub-personalities that you have within inside of you that will manifest, that will usurp your current waking state of consciousness and put you unconscious and take control over your energetic, your emotional, and your physical body. So if you don't address this stuff as it comes up, it will take you over, and it will ruin your life. It will turn you into somebody who you not are, and you can find yourself in jail. You can find yourself dead. You can find yourself in the hospital. You can find yourself jobless. You can find yourself homeless. You know what I'm talking about because you've heard stories like this. So make sure you deal with your stuff today.